baseball cap as a base for your head, and then just build around that with like a foam, or I hear craft foam is pretty effective. Like, and I've seen people actually just make wigs out of craft foam and they look fantastic. It's really easy to form craft foam to what you want. It's easier to cut, and it's really cheap. So it's like the foamy paper that you can get at like Hobby Lobby or even Joann's and stuff like that. But yeah, and then as for hairspray though, I highly recommend, I have a can right here. This has got to be hairspray. You can get it at lots of places, Walmart, Target. It's a little more expensive than stuff like, I know Aquanet is a good brand too. That's actually what I used a lot before I started using Got To Be. But Got To Be happens to be my favorite. It just really works, sticks really well, sometimes too well. But you want to use it, usually you want to use it pretty sparingly if you're like spiking wigs, because if you load it too much, it'll make your hair really clumpy and stringy. But if you're doing something where you are adhering it to another surface, like the cardboard or craft foam, you can probably load on a lot more, because you've got the foam kind of helping support that and giving it more fill to it. And that's another thing too, is if you're using craft foam or another sort of material, you want to make sure it's as close to the color as the wig that you're styling. I could even tell you right now, the wig I'm using right now, this Yusei wig, I used craft felt, like this really stiff craft felt, not the really soft stuff, to basically make armatures for the spikes. And I did the same kind of technique I was talking about with Super Saiyan hair, where I actually just dabbed a bunch of tacky glue on those felt pieces, and I just slowly kind of layered the hair on top of that and used a ton of hairspray. I used a lot more hairspray than I normally do, but it was to help to keep it stuck. But I mean, there would have been more gaps if I hadn't had the felt, but because the felt was black to match the wig, you can hardly tell. It kind of fills in those gaps and makes it nice and neat looking. So, but yeah, I mean, craft foam is a bit more of a different texture than felt is, so it might be a little more difficult. You might have to just layer more hair onto it. But I mean, if you're building a base out of felt, then you're probably going to have to get a lot of extensions anyway. So, yes.
Would you recommend for a larger spike like that to have some sort of base, like a...
It's a lot easier. You wouldn't, like, I tried to style this wig without any sort of armature, and it's just, the spikes would not stay up. They were so heavy. I styled a wig like this before 3 years ago, and I had an easier time, but even still, I was using hairpins to kind of keep them in place, and it just took so much longer than just having something to build on, you know, it over. And there's also, I mean, I've seen tons of people do like intricate, like, I don't know if you saw the other day, the Sailor Moon cosplayers that had like these really intricate hairstyles. Yeah, and like, I don't know what they used as a base, but I think sometimes people use like styrofoam balls. They look like, you know, for buns and stuff. They'll wrap the hair around that and tie it at the top, and they'll spray it in place. Though sometimes spray alone, it'll need a lot more maintenance. But the thing is, well, glue is really great, but at the same time, if you're wanting to fix a wig later, if you use any sort of glue at all, it's going to be a lot harder to fix if something happens to it that's bad. I mean, obviously you don't want to leave your wigs in a hot car. It's a bad idea because it'll probably, I mean, if the wig isn't heat resistant, the heat of the car will probably frizz and crimp the hair really bad. And if you have any sort of glue in it, it's going, or hairspray, if you have hairspray alone in it, it's going to droop really bad. So you want to take good care, make sure your wigs, when you're not using them, are stored in a dry, cool place. But yeah, I mean, glue, I noticed actually, it's easier to like keep a wig in good condition when I have it so nicely styled with the glue the first time around. I just have to be very careful with it that I don't like get really rowdy with it or put it someplace where it could potentially get ruined and then I can't fix it because it's harder to fix with these yes?
How you would want to do a swirl on Italy?
Oh, like a swirl? I've seen a few people do like, they'll take like a wire or something really stiff that can do the curl, and then they'll either, like you can either glue, I mean depending on what the surface is, you can glue the hair in that direction and have it, use the glue to like to mold it that way, or you could wrap it around the wire. The wrapping seems to look pretty good too, so it really depends on what kind of effect you're trying to get with it. But you would probably need something under that hair to keep it in that shape. Otherwise, it'll probably, the weight of it will just make it droop. Yes?
What do you do like the smaller spikes of the cloud wig?
Oh, the cloud wig, I didn't have to use any sort of armature or anything, but basically, for this wig in particularly, I actually combined 2 wigs together. They're the same style to get that double thickness. But there are some styles that are thick enough that you don't really need to do that. Like punkies from Ambergori's New Look brand of wig. Punkies are really good, and then on Arna, there's a style called the Jareth and the Vegas. Those 2 are really good for spiking because there's so much volume to work with. But this one wasn't any of those. I actually just had to combine the wigs to get the extra thickness. But in general, when I spike a wig, all I do is, well, first, I want to rearrange the spikes and make sure that the hair is distributed well enough that whenever I style it, I'm not going to be running into surprises later on where I realize, oh, I use so much hair in these spikes, I don't have enough hair to work with over here on these set of spikes. A big example of that was I styled a Sora wig. He's got huge, ginormous spikes in the back, and I wanted to make sure I had enough hair to work with back there, but at the same time enough hair in the top for the other spikes. So I had to take a bunch of hairpins and separate the hair out first. But once you've got that and you're ready to style, you go ahead and you take one of your spikes. I guess I could maybe demonstrate. Maybe fix it. I don't have a blow dryer though, or I have a blow dryer, but I don't think I have an outlet, so you can plug it in. So we'll kind of.
No, exactly.
It's alright. I think you don't have to have a blow dryer, it makes things go a lot faster. But basically, say I've got a spike ready to go. I'm going to put this down and try to project. Yeah, you might want to close it. So there's. Okay, this one isn't really exactly meant for spiking because this isn't. The one thing that's nice about like the punkies I was talking about, the Jarrahs, is that they have like a very frizzed roots in the top of the wig that make it.
Where you get those?
The punky extra long you can get on Amphibori.com and Cosworks, which is a website that's linked on Cosmo.com. It's like one of the big sites that's promoted there. The Jareth and the Vegas you can get on Warda Wigs. That was the websites I was talking about earlier today. Basically, so you've got your spike, and like say I want it to be this long. Usually what I'll do to keep it kind of up while I work on it is I'll spray the roots of it just a little bit. At the base. And then I'll blow dry it. And so that helps it just stick it up while I work. So that way when I cut it, it won't just fall. But then I'll take the scissors, and I won't be cutting it because I actually need this for something else. But I'll take the scissors, and it's really good to cut in the direction of the spike rather than straight across or at an angle, because that'll make it very choppy looking and thick. But if you cut just, it takes a lot longer, but if you cut in the direction, then you can thin out the tip as you're working on it. And so that way when you pull it to a tip, it'll actually make a point and not like a stub. So once I get to that point though, basically what I like to do is I like to use a little bit of fabric glue in the tip to hold that together. Because hairspray alone usually just doesn't do it for me. Eventually over time the spike splits apart and I have to keep going back and fixing it. And it's just really obnoxious. But the thing is if I load too much hairspray in the rest of the spike and I'll keep it all together, that just makes it all stringy and clumped together. So I usually just use a sparing amount of hairspray in the overall base of the spike, and then just spritz, and then just a little bit of glue in the tips, and then the end result is this. That's what I did for the entire wig here, except for the back. But yeah, it's not gonna stay up today. So. also, if you do comb out the spikes after they've been sprayed, sometimes they work better the second time because it still has hairspray in those fibers, and it'll frizz the spike a little bit, and that actually gives it a little more volume and holds it together better the next time around. So, some of the really extra silky wigs, like those heat-resistant wigs from Epic Cosplay, are really ridiculous hard to style because they just don't adhere well to each other. They're too silky. But like the punkies and the jarrets, those wigs have like the nice frizzed already in the roots, and that's why it's so easy to work with. Any more questions? Yes.
How would you maintain a long wig for like a long period of time without losing so many fibers while combing it out?
Well, one thing you can do is right when you first get your wig, you want to prepare it in such a way that in the long run it'll last longer than what it would otherwise. I got a Yoko wig, or I styled a wig for Yoko when we were gone. She's got that ridiculous long ponytail. One thing that I learned is you could use there's a few different products you could use to prepare the wig, or even if you already got the wig, you can use it on it later on to help even get some of those tangles out and stuff. There's a product called Motions. It's Motions oil sheen and conditioner spray. You can find it in the ethnic hair aisles at Walmart, Target, and stuff like that. It comes in a spray can, like a can of hairspray. And basically what you would do is spray the heck out of your wig with it, like have it sitting on a wig head. Take it outside first, because you're going to make a mess. Spray the heck out of the wig, and it'll look really nasty and oily and gross, but just let it dry for a few days, like maybe 3 days is a good amount of time to give it. You can take it inside, but just have something below it in case it's dripping or something. And then after that, you can comb it out, and it'll go back to how it was before. It might look a little bit oilier, and it feels a little oilier, but it doesn't get any residue on you. And it smells really nice, but it makes the hair a lot easier to manage when you try to brush it. It's not as easy to tangle. There's also some products there's like a horse conditioning shampoo called Shoshi, and I think you can get that at pet stores. I haven't used it before, and I think I heard it smells kind of bad, but it works really, really well.
I tried that and it didn't really work for me.
It didn't?
Yeah. I tried it on a pair of straight booty balls and it just made it really foamy.
Arms hurt.
What I usually use is a brand called Mane and Tail. You can get it from Walmart, and that one's always usually worked really well for me. It doesn't add a lot of residue.
Arms.
Okay,
Yeah, I have to keep my hands steady.
We haven't.
No, but like you yourself.
Can't keep the hair in the wig.
Oh, like
It's like coming out. We comb
Oh.
out, and the hair is just like coming out as you're combing. We have a white tooth comb. It's just like every now and then.
Well, I wonder if that could just be the wig, like how the wig was constructed. Maybe the wefts are also depends on what color you're using. But if you're using, first of all, when you're combing a wig, it's recommended not to use a brush, because brushes are meant to, in your own hair, like in your own head, take out all the dead hairs and stuff. So you might just stick with a comb. Start with something with a wide tooth or your fingers before working up to something with finer teeth. I know some places also they give you like this little wig brush that has like wire teeth. I hate those.
Yeah.
I don't know why they tell you to only use those. I think they're terrible. But that's just me. Some people they think it works really well for them, but I just use normal combs with I guess it's because they feel that the other combs are too harsh on a wig because they're thinner fibers, or they're not thinner, they're thicker, but they're it's just not the same as your own hair fibers. But it's just I think as long as the bristles are sturdy enough that